I'm simply a mom of an angel, and like I said, my hero. I birthed my hero, but I know that within all that, God is doing things, and we are no different than anyone else. But we simply choose to not be marked by the fact of we are a family that lost a child. As I tell my daughter all the time, our son passing is part of our story, but it's not our story. Individually, we all have our story to tell.
Welcome to the world of Why Wait Till Friday, a place where we keep it simple, intentionally find joy in the middle moments, and consistently stay comfortable. Enjoy today's courageous conversation. Welcome to Why Wait Till Friday. We're actually here today, back from a bit, right? We've been absent for a little bit, but we're back today with Karen, someone who I have been following and honoring for a long time. I don't want to say much about her except that she is this powerful person who has a story, like all of us, that she's willing to share, and that in many moments I have seen in her a movement of her own that she may not even know is existent. And so I'm honored to bring her on set with us today. I'm excited for her to share a little bit about her and who she is and what she represents. Thank you for being here, Karen. Honestly, I think that this is a gift. And I'll just kind of share, I definitely believe that you were supposed to be here today. This was not planned at all. Karen, I was on her page, and she posted this gorgeous picture of a very special human who she'll tell us about, because I think that's her story to tell, not mine. And the person was holding a yellow flower, and it screamed at me. You all know that we are launching this month the Find the Yellow campaign. And on that day, that picture was definitely a much needed yellow for me. So I felt like I needed to reach out and say hi, right? And here we are. Very quickly after that, it just felt perfect. So welcome, Karen. This is an honor, and I want you to tell the world who you are and why you think you're here.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Yeah, we were chatting on Instagram, and I remember you saying, like, we would love to have you on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, whenever you want.
Yeah.
And then you responded with dates. I'm like, okay, we're doing this now. So
Absolutely. Why wait till Friday?
Exactly. Talk about keeping it
On brand, right?
on brand. And it's so funny because that day, the reason, I mean, I have so many beautiful pictures of that individual who is my son, my hero who I birthed. And that day, I could have picked any other picture. But as I always say, that's how God speaks through us. Like, I chose that picture and that tugged at you, and it made you reach out to me, and here we are. So I just think it's so beautiful to see the interconnection of things and how things collide and organically happen. And it's really a way of us telling our story that we all have. We all have our own story. We all bear our own cross. And I think it's amazing on how the contribution that we can make in each other's lives by opening ourselves up to seeing those signs and seeing those things. So thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So tell us, who's Karen?
So that's a fully loaded question. As my husband likes to say, don't ever cut your hair in a bob. So my name is Karen Duque, and I am a very blessed person of having 3 beautiful kids and an amazing husband. I am the daughter of an amazing couple who instilled in me the most amazing gift, which is my faith. My dad was a deacon. My dad has passed. And my mom and my dad just, from very humble beginnings, migrant here from Cuba. I was born in Costa Rica, came here when I was months old. And
interesting.
Yeah, and I've lived here all my life. And through that journey, God was always a very present, kind of forceful, cradle Catholic at the beginning. And then little by little bit with life and how I would have it, that would evolve into my own faith, and how that has been such a big stepping stone and surviving a big tool. I say life is like a box of tools. And with life events, we know what tools to use. And faith has always definitely been a big, stepping stone for me. From meeting my husband, when I met him, from being able to know that faith was not a negotiable for us, and I was always in the middle of it, to then having all those tools in place to having my son, So my son's name is Jake Orlando Duque. And Jake was diagnosed at 4 years old after fishing in my backyard literally 2 days before and caught that big bass that he isn't so famously known for.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing it. I
yeah.
can totally picture it on that lake.
So my kids are amazing. All three of them are very beautiful personalities. But my son particularly was this kid who would tell me I love you 1,000 times a day. He had a joy for life. And my son is known for always smiling, like this joy for life as a whole. And going from picking up from school because he was off, like there was something off. And he was presenting that whole week, his whole classmates had like a stomach bug, and he was presenting like I didn't think anything of it because his whole class was presenting on that. So come Thursday, I get a phone call from school and saying, hey, and his teacher who's known me all my life was like, I don't see him like himself. Something's off. So I left my coffee on my desk and I went to go get him. And the moment I saw him, I was like, okay, we need to go to the hospital. So we went to Georgia Maggio, and the staff was amazing. We are very fond of the hospital there, and it's actually where he passed, full circle. But when we went there, they basically did all the tests, and then they told us from something was up with their son to not even an hour later knowing that it was a tumor, a very large tumor, and we would know more tomorrow. The following day, you can imagine we were all there, and the following day, we got confirmation that he had a non-operable terminal cancer, and the cancer that he had, we don't have cancer in our family. It was not something that, we missed something or whatever. So it's called DIPG, and DIPG is something that affects 200 to 300 kids in the world.
Wow.
And everyone says it's rare, but it's really not because it's happening more and more. And it's a movement. And it's a movement that unfortunately I myself was cashing out at McDonald's, and they would say like, hey, do you want to donate to Ronald McDonald's? I'm like, oh, maybe later. Or I've been told, hey, you want to donate to St. Jude? And you're like, yeah, maybe later. And I found myself, this was a Thursday, and by Sunday, we were in St. Jude. And I lived in Ronald McDonald House. And although we knew what we were getting into, we always told God to be merciful. And boy, was he merciful with our son. My son's fought 2 days shy of 8 months. 8 is very present in our life, and I'll talk to you guys more about that. And during that whole time, my son never once said, I'm tired, why me? No more of any other stuff that he had to do. My son, if you would in fact slip in front of him and say, Jakey's sick, he would say, I'm not sick, God made me better. So
was that something that he just...
Yeah, he just, and we would go to mass, and obviously but it wasn't so much like we're a regular family, but he taught me so much. As my husband says, he taught him, like he was a fisherman. Like he taught my husband so much, and he taught me. And listen, unfortunately, there's kids that get diagnosed from cancer all the time. We don't like it, but it's the reality. And there's still, my son, June 8th will be 5 years that he's passed, and there's still people like yourself that still remember him. Why him? What was so special about him? Obviously he's special to me, but that made me think about it, and his story touched so many people's lives. And one thing I'll tell you,
his story created community.
Yes,
for sure.
Absolutely. And we still live that. Through his journey, we were blessed with having a huge, huge community and an outpour of community. And through his story, all I knew was to tell his story his way. So we were very open on social media, and it was all what my husband said. All we asked for is to put my son's name in your prayers and just say a prayer. And, one prayer is like a mustard seed. It moves mountains. And we saw such a big movement in prayers. And that's something that just, from that to rescue from Lauren Daigle became a movement for us. Like that song was just everything for us. And it's just become a movement. So much so that, when we talk to families that are going through this, we didn't focus not for 1 second. And it wasn't that we weren't oblivious or blinded to it. We didn't focus for 1 second to diagnose. I couldn't even tell you how many days in we were into the journey. I only know that it was 2 days shy of 8 months because I calculated that afterwards. But in that moment, that day, we had a whole list of doctor appointments. But I could tell you when my son on Fridays would get D-axis, his port would get D-axis, shoot, we were going to do bubble baths, and we were going to I would fill up, I don't know how many balloons in the bubble bath. And then I would put something in the drain to not clog the drain. And we would make it count. And if he had, part of that cancer, it starts affecting your respiratory, your vision, your side. So my son's side was pretty much paralyzed. One of his side was paralyzed so much that he used to suck his thumb and he stopped. So we knew that he had limitation on one side. So we got him we got him a gun, like a nerve gun that he didn't have to
Use
track
both
back.
hands.
It was just so things like that. And we did not let for 1 second hinder his joy. We were going to make it. And we continue that afterwards. And that's something that at times can be hard, like everything in life, but we search for our joy. So that's something that resonates when you said, searching for the yellow, because life is going to get hard, because that's life. Life is not always going to be easy peasy. It's searching for that joy, searching for that yellow, and really searching for it and repositioning, pivoting, whatever you want to call it, to be like, okay, yes, this is going on. And that's where my faith comes. I might not see all steps of the staircase, but I know damn sure that the next step, I'm not doing it by myself. And that's what for me is faith. I don't have all the tools. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know that I'm not alone. And that's why I always say that God equips not those that are chosen. He equips those that have been selected. He only doesn't pick the people that you might think have it.
Of course.
And I think that's super
Also
important.
that are open to receiving, right? And to understanding. It's interesting because you're speaking and I feel like I'm visualizing your story because I followed it through social, right? Because I did not know you personally, but I knew of it, and I wanted to make sure to be present and to pray and to offer whatever support that we could. But one thing that I remember from your story, which I think resonates so much with my movement and why wait till Friday and find the yellow now, is that although Jakey was very sick and you were very honest about it, when you would see the pictures and the videos, you almost didn't see the sick, even though he was transforming and everything about him, from, the picture of the fish to what he was when, towards the end, there was definitely a physical transformation, but there was always a sense of joy in what you shared, right? You always had this almost like, and I don't think it was on purpose. I just think that it was really what you were living. I think that you guys were pulling from those in-between moments what really mattered on that day. And it wasn't so much about diagnosis or outcome or, what the doctor's appointments were looking like. It was more about living. Like, I feel like you were intentionally living in the moment.
Yeah.
And that is what the world got from you. And to me, I felt so compelled to have you come and share that, because that's the whole meaning and the whole depth of the hard happens. What do you do with it? And so that kind of leads me, Karen, to I want you to share with us, because even till today, and Karen on social does something that's called Truth Talk Tuesday. And I've always followed it and honored it and shot her hearts and letting her know that I'm supporting from the side. And today's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So when we text this morning about confirmation, we shared, and I said it's going to be a very special Truth Talk Tuesday. And with that being said, I want you to kind of share in true Truth Talk Tuesday form how you've been able, post Jakey passing, continue to live. Because now you post your current, little circle and your family, and I still feel that joy. And even though you're talking hard, and many times in your Truth Talk Tuesday conversations, they're like these deep, courageous conversations, there's still like this joy that I feel and that I see. What have you done to be able to continue that, you think?
So I think a lot of it has to do with what you said about intentionally living in the moment. The day that Jakey got diagnosed, like I said, it was a Thursday, and soon Sunday we were in St. Jude. I'll never forget. I want to say it was that Saturday morning. I have an amazing group of mommy friends, and one of my mommy friends is, and I say mommy friends because she was my first friend, but her husband is also our friend of ours. Our group is very blessed. Well, he's an amazing, world-renowned photographer, and they showed up at the hospital at 7:00 in the morning to take pictures. And in that moment, I remember thinking, like, I don't even have clothes. I don't have anything.
Right.
I had a team. They borrowed a dress from one of my friends. They came, my sister came and did my makeup. And it's a beautiful picture, and we've actually shared. And in that picture, you don't see, Jakey has an IV in his hand. You don't see it in the pictures. Jakey's in hospital socks in the pictures. You don't see that. You see a family walking the hallways, blowing bubbles. And in that moment, we didn't realize it. I look at it now and I have an aha moment of like, God was so intentional from the very beginning. My husband didn't grow up with a faith base that I grew up with. But my husband, and when I met, he wanted to be involved, and he got, he went through RCIA, he went to Emmaus, as I went to Emmaus, and he got his confirmation communion. Well, when Jakey got diagnosed, he went outside and smoked like a whole thing of cigarettes. And as he was walking in, someone stopped him and said, "Do you know where the chapel is?" And my husband was like, "Oh my God, like, I don't have time for this." So he's like, "Yeah, down the hallway." And that guy was a young guy, and he's like, "Do you know," like, kept on asking him. So to a point that my husband had to go in to show him where the chapel is. And the kid turns around and goes, "Do you know how to pray?" And my husband was like, again, like, I'm trying to get to my son, and my husband kneeled down and was like, "Yeah, praying is talking to God." Well, when he came back, he gave me a cigarette and turned them in. He goes, I'm not smoking anymore. He vapes now. That's a whole different subject. But I say that because from the very beginning, God was very present. And that intentional joy that you see is because we are people of faith, and we know that it doesn't stop here. Our son taught us that. We've had a lot of incidents that have solidified that. We have a huge, huge support from our army, which is Jakey's army, which is a foundation, a movement that started with him to being here today. I am I'm simply a mom of an angel, and like I said, my hero. I birthed my hero, but I know that within all that, God is doing things, and we are no different than anyone else. But we simply choose to not be marked by the fact of we are a family that lost a child. As I tell my daughter all the time, our son passing is part of our story, but it's not our story. Individually, we all have our story to tell. And I know God's not done with me, because if not, I wouldn't be here.
Right,
so
absolutely.
I have, and my husband lives this, my girls live this. We wake up in the morning and we thank God. In our morning prayer, we thank God for the gift of today. And in everything we do, we try to do it while making God proud and Jakey proud. And we're very present, and that's present in everything. And the same way that I do my morning prayer and I thank God for our day, I always go down the list and I say, "God, let us be the best version of ourselves. Let us do things making you and Jakey proud." And when I say, "I love you, my family," I go down the list and I say, "I love you, Lila. I love you, Jakey. I love you, Ceci. I love you, Papi," because he is very present. But I know that I'm now living a life through my eyes, but I'm living his life and trying to do the things that I know he puts in me and the opportunities. And that joy is very intentional. And there's just some days that are, obviously with grief, you have your days. And I try to be as honest as possible, because I think like some people just have this notion of what should it be like. But at the end of the day, grief is like a rock, and it's a rock in my pocket. I've already gotten used to that weight. I didn't choose to have that rock in my pocket, but it's my rock. So as my husband very often reminds me, he's our cross. This is the cross that we have to bear. And sometimes we rely on that cross. Sometimes we lean on that cross. And sometimes we carry that cross, but it's our cross. And everyone has that. You know what I mean? So it's really the way we see things is our daughters deserve to have present parents, and our daughters deserve to see joy. And as our daughters grow up, I don't want them, and I think this was very clear to me and to my husband, I don't want them to remember sad mommy and sad papi. So whether we're in the middle of the ocean on our boat, or whether I like to say, Duque family adventures, and sometimes it's like, hey, hop in the car and go to Chick-fil-A for ice cream, whatever it is, or it's having family dinner and saying highs and lows of our day. I strive to look for that, because we are so blessed to be here, and we have a mission. And whatever that mission is, whether it's brushing our teeth and surviving the day, or really making an impact in someone else's life. And I encourage people that follow our story and reach out and are very inquisitive of how we do things. Do the science experiment of saying good morning to a random stranger at Publix. Just say good morning or hi. Sometimes they'll look at you like, do I know you? Because sometimes we forget that. Simple things that connect. Maybe you're the only person that actually looked at that person and said hi to them.
True.
So it's finding that joy, finding that, and not waiting for a special event or a vacation to have that moment, creating those joys.
Right. It's you've said so many amazing things that align so much with living in the in between, finding joy in the simple moments intentionally, right? Like making sure. But I also heard a lot of action. So I think that there's your story, there's a lot of action towards making sure you're living the legacy. You're living in the in between, but intentionally acting, like the prayer in the morning that you do to, thank God for the day, regardless of what the day looks like.
Yeah.
You're grateful that it exists, right?
Yeah.
When you're navigating through the hard, how you shift the perspective, how you have your rock, you're aware that it's there, but you're still living beyond that. You're not allowing yourself to be a family of only sadness. You're embracing the sad and allowing it to exist, but you're also finding ways to feel the joy. And to me, that requires effort, that requires commitment, and that requires action. And it sounds like you've committed to it, right? You've remained consistent, even if simplistically, but you're acting daily towards finding those in-between moments that you don't take for granted, that are of great value, right? Like even from a parenting perspective, right? And you said something that I think is important is, you said you don't want your girls to remember a sad mom. So I think my question to you is, what do you do when you are sad? Do you honor that sadness? Do you share that sadness? Like, do you allow that feeling to be existent?
So I'm open and honest about everything. I tell my daughter, my oldest obviously understands more than my little one, but I tell them, Mommy and Daddy didn't leave the hospital with a rule, like a book. Like we're doing our best and we're going to make mistakes. And when I am sad, I have an advantage or disadvantage that I have no poker face. So you can see it in my face.
Okay.
I always say that I wear a different mask. So I allow myself to have the mask in front of my daughters, but for the most part, I strive to be positive and they see it. But there's times that I can't hold it and they see it, and then I honor it. And I say, look, I'm having an off day. Today's a sad day. We're about to embark into like very heavy days, which is his birthday, May 8th, and then his death anniversary, which is June 8th. And they know it.
Hence why 8 is a big deal for you.
Yes, he was born on the 8th. He passed on the 8th, and he has shown us in so many different ways how 8 is so important to us. And so I own it, and I'll tell my daughters, but that doesn't mean that that's not. It's not I think it's important to acknowledge that, and that's why I always say that grief and joy can coexist, and I'm really big about that. So it's saying, hey, I'm having an off day, and I'm having a moment, but I let it be a moment. I don't allow myself to be a week, 2 months, or whatever. And I know, like I said, I know that we're going into some heavy days, but in the back end, I'm already thinking of like, what am I gonna do to honor his life that I'm okay with, not what people expect me to do or what is okay for me and my family. And I strive to really, really be present in what my kids and my husband need as much as I know my husband does the same. And that's something that I'm extremely proud of, my marriage, and the fact that not only has it been able to survive this, not knowing that it would have survived this at all, but it's thrived and it's stronger than ever because we get so much strength from each other, but we intentionally deposit into each other. So if he knows I'm having an off day, a simple text, or like yesterday I was cooking and he came up to me and we started dancing in the kitchen. And of course, Lila comes in and is like, Mommy. But it's important, and we intentionally.
Say that again. You did what in the kitchen?
I was cooking and I had music on. I love to listen to music. Music is a form of prayer for me. And my husband comes up to me and he just started to dance behind me. So we started dancing and my Lila comes in and she's like, Mommy, it's so cringy.
That's amazing. So at Why Wait Till Friday, we would call that a midweek moment.
Yes, of course.
And we want people like create the ambiance, turn on the music, turn on the candle, do whatever it is midweek. Let's not wait, right? So like turn on the music when you have people over, and then it's like once in a month or 2 months. Like I honor that. I think that is so amazing that you danced in your kitchen midweek.
And that's the thing is that he probably
see how you live the movement and you didn't even know it.
And that's the thing is like those type of things, and I think it's so important because, listen, it's very easy to be like, oh my God, we lost our son. Oh my God, we're sad. Oh my God. And yes, that is, like I told you, part of our story, but we strive to find that joy. But also I have made an intentional efforts to protect that joy. because it's hard. Life sometimes is hard. Days are hard. Sometimes days are heavier than others. So my mission in life is to get my girls and my husband to heaven. And I'm very aware of that. My son left a little bit earlier than I would have liked, but that's not up to me. So I will do everything in my power to raise kids that are equipped, because I'm not going to always be around. And you don't raise your kids for you raise them for the world.
Absolutely.
So empowering them for that, and then making sure that my husband, so whether it's a text, whether it's a random call, checking in on someone, whether it's a note, or whether it's going out of your way to like making, and I'm spoiled in the sense that I do a lot of it for my family, because I think I know that I have such a big support system that does it for me. I have so many people in my life, whether people that I just met a couple years ago, whether people I've had before Jakey got diagnosed, or people that I met while he got diagnosed that have really stepped up, and I've always been there for us. Unfortunately, I've had people that have had to put boundaries because they don't understand that, and that's okay too.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I need to protect our mindset. I need to protect that bubble that I create. And it's not a fictitious bubble. It's a necessary bubble to be able to navigate world without my son physically being here.
Absolutely.
Because if I allow myself for a second to think of the severity and the heaviness of that, I don't know if I could be here.
It sounds like you definitely, at Why Wait Till Friday, we talk a lot about feeling to heal.
Yeah.
And we encourage people to embrace the feelings at hand and then give themselves permission to heal, right? Because we don't want to ignore what we feel, but we want to also allow it to pass and then be able to live in the healing, because I think healing is a journey for sure, right? I actually think I may have posted that today, which is super relevant, how joy and healing are a journey, not a destination, right? And how it takes the daily grind to be able to really have that vibe. And I think, you said something about, having a bubble intentionally because your narrative is hard. The storyline you lived is already challenging.
Yeah.
So if you don't intentionally create that space and that joy and make it relevant and important, then clearly you're going to sit in the heart. And you've done such an amazing job of kind of living beyond it, right? You're the epitome of living beyond the story and making sure that you continue to keep Jakey at the forefront, but almost like in an inclusive way.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like to bring it down, if that makes sense. It's like he's just a part of and everything that you do. And that's so apparent and so evident. And I think that takes a tremendous amount of courage and strength, honestly, to be with your family where you are, Tell us a little bit about your girls.
They're amazing. Lila's had to grow up real fast. Lila's my oldest. Lila made us parents. And Lila is mature beyond her days. Sometimes I have to tell her, I'm the mom.
Right, for sure.
Or I'll tell her, I'm the captain. Lila is kind-hearted. Lila had to endure a lot of things, She not only did I lose my son, she lost her brother, and she lost in a big way, which is what a lot of people don't talk about, is she lost her parents prior to her brother passing away. We were a different family, and when you evolve and you make lemonade with the lemons you got, of course. So Lila had lost that. But Lila has not lost her joy. And that is something that I've been told by many people and I've purposely done. And this is why I tell you that I tell her all the time, Jakey's part of your story, but he's not your story. You have your own story to tell. Lila has gone through, originally when he passed, she went to therapy, she wanted it, and then she told me she was good, and she knows that door is always open. But Jakey passed away when Lila was 8. Before that, her kindergarten teacher passed away the year she was her teacher. Then my dad passed away. My dad was a huge part of her life, her abu, who she loved, and a year later, her brother passed away. So she's had to endure a lot of loss at a very young age. And I will tell you that Lila navigates it in a way that I'm in awe with her and how she is. We're embarking into teenage years, and those are years that are hard years. And kids grieve differently than we do. We grieve the initial, and then it lingers. Kids grieve kind of like retro. Like there's a lot of now inquisitive like conversations as
Right, as they gain the wisdom of life.
Yeah, and they
the
understand.
questions, I'm sure, the curiosities.
Yeah, so it's like, why did I not get cancer? At one point, she was having headaches, so she wanted to know if she had the same type of cancer. And I'm the type of mom that I went to her neurologist, which was Jakey's neurologist, and I was like, look, I showed her the scans, and I'm like, you don't have, diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. You don't have the DIPG. You don't have that. There's nothing to worry about. So, but Lila's been able to navigate life, and as we embark into middle school and teenage years, which is a challenge.
So well aware of those.
Yes. I strive to continue to preserve that joy and not so much fit in the norms that life has sometimes for us. And I'm not that mom that told her, baby girl, there's going to be things that you're not going to be allowed to do, and it has nothing to do with you, but it's because your mama cannot withstand another big jolt. So we're going to talk about things and we're going to meet halfway, but we're going to go. But she is a beautiful little girl and she's an amazing sister. And when we found out we were pregnant with our little one, Lila told us Jakey knew what he needed. He sent me a sissy. And that's why Ceci's named Sissy, because Jakey used to call Lila Sissy.
Oh, wow.
Lila is who I thought was going to give me all my white hairs. Boy, does God have a sense of humor. It will be Ceci. And Ceci is a bundle of joy. She's a spicy margarita, as I like to call her. But she definitely brings a lot of joy in the house. Lila and Jakey's dynamic was a beautiful dynamic. And seeing Ceci and Lila evolve and having their own relationship. Lila's like a little mom. And she loves Ceci, and Ceci's a lot sometimes. But she is just, I know overall she enjoys being a big sister, and she's an amazing big sister. And Ceci has an ability of melting my heart. You have to understand, I found out I was pregnant with Lila on my 30th birthday. I turned 42 weeks after I had Ceci.
Right, big difference.
So
I was just gonna ask you that. Because Why Wait Till Friday, we talk to moms a lot, and we even have like days of the week where we dedicate it to what's called moments, right?
Yeah.
And these are the moments that only us as mom
really
know are happening. It's like it's a tug to our heart quietly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we call them moments on purpose because we don't want people to miss them. We want people to document them and know. So I think my question I was gonna ask you was like being, the mom of three at very different stages and phases of your life, having had loss in the in between. Do you find yourself parenting differently?
100%.
Yeah, because I have three children myself, and I always say, so my oldest is 22 and my youngest is 14, and I am very different with my 14-year-old, and that is the truth. But I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Round one, pobre, he got all of the the growing pains, if we can call him that. And it's good and it's bad, right? And now with my 14-year-old, also a middle schooler in 8th grade, I see life very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine with your story and your journey, how you see life so differently. So if you don't mind sharing just a little bit about like how you are different as a mom.
So yeah, with Lila, I mean, poor thing, she's got all of it. And then my sister's so funny. My dada this week reminded me, she's like, my God, you're such a different parent. And I'm like, yeah, I'm tired.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Ceci is a handful, and she's 3 and she's a rambunctious 3. But I will tell you that like it's almost like me and my husband are like, okay, if it's not detrimental to anyone else and she's okay, all right, fine. So I guess like maybe like no more juice after a certain time or whatever. Then you have my 3-year-old drinking a Coke and I'm like, it's fine. So it's just that type of stuff that's very much like very laid back parenting. And it's funny because my sister calls me out. My sister has that ability to be able to call me out and not be offended. Like she has that pass with me, and that's why I love my dada. But yeah, she called me out on it just this week. We were on spring break and my sister's like, oh my God, we went to Pilot House in the Keys and it's a bar, and Ceci screamed for something and I was just like, Ceci, and my sister's like, you're so passive. Like everyone at the restaurant looked back. I'm like, who cares?
Right.
As opposed to the first one, I would be like, oh my God, we gotta leave. Oh my God. Or maybe not even go. And I'm like, whatever. So I think with the journey, and I think as every parent, life teaches you different lessons and you definitely parent differently.
We don't sweat the small stuff.
No,
at
all.
I feel that. I remember with my oldest, like I had 3 changes of clothes in my bag just in case he got dirty. Like with my little one, and I don't even know what was in the bag sometimes. Yeah. Like I didn't really pay, like if he got dirty, it was okay to be dirty and we embraced the dirty, right? And so So I can totally, completely relate. And again, I think it's all the chapters of our lives. We have different chapters and we evolve, and I think life just makes us wiser. And we don't pay attention to the tiniest things. Like, who cares if the baby screams?
Yeah.
Like, more joy to the bar, right? Like, bring it on.
I think the concern from my sister's part is like how laid back I am. Like my husband dropped off my girls at my mom's house and failed to bring diapers, and Ceci's still being potty trained. And again, my fault because I should be more proactive. I'm like, she'll get it eventually. She knows. And I haven't been. Well, my mom's like, well, I had to put one of like adult diaper on her because she. And I'm like, oh, that works. Like, not phased whatsoever. It's like, oh, it's fine, you know? Because at the end of the day, I guess we just live in like, we know so much more that it's just like, listen, at the end of the day, like,
perspective.
We don't sweat the small stuff. We really don't.
And it's the perspective, right? I also think like we emotionally go through certain things throughout our life. So like our emotional threshold. Yeah. Like I'm not putting all this energy into Pampers because I've had to put my energy in so many things that are real. Like, you know, you shared with me when we were talking before the podcast about like when your husband said anything after June 8th, is it really important? Like, will that really break us, right?
Yeah.
And that to me has resonated. I feel like I'm going to put like a sign because I feel that is so important. Like if you can use a time that was hard that you were capable of overcoming, then everything else in life finds its way and its perspective. You don't need to necessarily worry so much about things when you know how truly capable you are. And obviously you are super capable of overcoming obstacles and challenges, you know?
Yeah. So. And I pray for God to continue giving us that strength. I also I know that it's hard to even navigate sometimes. Like sometimes I see people around us like tiptoeing on certain issues. We're as normal as can be. We just had this happen to us. And I'm not afraid of like addressing that in the room or going there. And I like at first even mentioning Jakey, or like I'll say, like if you ask me how many kids I have, automatically I'll say 3, you know, and I always say I have a 12-year-old, I have one that's in heaven, 5 years old, and then I have my rainbow baby. And most of the time the reaction is like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, thank you. Or sometimes I had one kid, I'll never forget it. After Jakey passed for a little bit, I was helping out at my daughter's school, and one kid, I mean, I love the fact that kids are so honest. He literally told me, he's like, Miss Duque, I feel sorry for you. You have a kid who's in heaven. Like, I feel really bad for you. And I said, why do you feel sorry for me? I don't feel sorry for me. And I think that echoes a lot of people's feelings, you know, because they don't know. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't know how to navigate it. And I feel like society as a whole, like we feel like we just say, I'm sorry. Or sometimes we think that it's best to not even address or talk about a subject that might upset someone. But sometimes just honoring them by mentioning them for us is like, wow, you know, because they're real and they're very real to us.
Absolutely. So, and giving you the space to be able to include him or speak about him, right? Without that hesitation, because I think that's actually more comfortable than the avoidance. Yeah. I think the avoidance is painful.
And it's very evident that there's something like, you know,
like there's something weird for sure. So I agree. I think that's... So I think that in closing, I talked about Truth Talk Tuesday, right? And I think we've talked a lot of the truth today, and I'm so grateful for it. How did that come up?
So I have a really good friend in my group, Melissa, who managed all of our social media and all that while she was about to pop. And she literally was like 8 months pregnant. And she was like, so what do you want to do? And they really wanted us to like narrate like how we want to do it. And I felt like the only way that I could address and give an update as to Jakey's status and all that was to be very vocal. So as he got sick, it so happened that every time on Tuesday, we would have a lot of, you know, updates. And then as he passed, we would get a lot of, you know, influx of like people asking questions or wanting to do things, stuff like that. So I just came up with this idea of like Truth Talk Tuesdays and then Thankful Thursdays. And I am thankful every day, but I'm kind of structurized it like that. And as life would have it, sometimes I'm not very strict on it. Like I've lagged a lot on the Truth Talk Tuesdays. And it's funny because every so often I'm thinking like, you know, that's it. Like, you know, he's passed. Like, where do I want to do with this? Or where do I want to go with it? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a break. And then that's when I get people like, oh my God, I miss your Truth Talk Tuesdays. And I always laugh because it's like, it's so funny how like sometimes I feel like I'm just, who's even listening? But then there's so many people that it resonates to them or like, you know, they depend on them. I will tell you the Truth Talk Tuesday is an honor of not only this journey, but being honest with myself. And what started for me as an update and kind of therapeutic to talk my feelings became something that like I would look back and every so often it's almost like a journal entry. I'll look back and I'll listen to it.
I interpret it as your journal. Because I was going to ask you, before I asked you about Truth Talk Tuesday, I was going to ask you, like, what do you do for yourself to help you, get through this? But I thought in my brain, how I processed was like, your Truth Talk Tuesdays feels like a healing.
Yeah.
That's how I interpret it, right? And it feels that from you. And then it's funny because you're saying journal, and that's exactly how I see it.
And to answer your question, what do? I pray without ceasing. I wake up in the morning and I pray. I listen to a rosary on the way to work. I have my Christian music, and I have a folder that I like an album playlist that I add to it, and I listen to it all day long at work. I pray on my way home, and sometimes like I'm stuck in traffic with the girls, and my daughter was like, "What are you doing, Mom?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just praying to our Father." So I find that to be the one consistent thing that keeps me grounded, and it gives me that peace. I also surround myself by people that are positive. Positivity for me is super important. I don't know, and it's almost like I'm allergic to toxicity and negativity, so I just don't even know how to deal with it, or drama. So I'm just like, no, I can't deal with that. So I just give it to God and just keep in my little bubble. And prayer for me has become, whether it's singing, music is a huge form of healing. And
that's always been, because even through Jakey's Army and everything, there was so much music involved,
And I will tell you that I find myself, and I tell this to a lot of parents that are grieving, I find myself wandering on, and I let my mind go as to what amazing projects God has Jakey working on. And that makes me, like, same way that we encourage our kids to either dance or sport or hey, study for that test, that makes me still connected with him. I personally have never seen God. I have felt his presence. How am I going to let the departure of my son's physical life stop me loving him and feeling his love when I birthed him and I physically had him? So that's my connection with him. And that prayer is my string, my invisible string with him.
Right, your invisible string. Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Talk about starting a Tuesday with perspective, for sure. I feel like you were my yellow today. Maybe it's the blonde hair, but I appreciate you being here, honestly. And I think it was, like I said, I don't think it was by mistake that I saw the picture and felt so compelled to invite you. I hope the world learns a little bit more about Jakey, and any family out there that's grieving, any parent who needed this today. I hope you gain something from it, especially knowing that there is joy in the in-between of pain. Give yourself permission to feel it. Thank you.
Thank you.